Today, we would like to discuss an interesting issue, how the social capital, the network of the acquaintances and friends and support and the people you know can contribute to your ability to acquire wealth, to support your family, to change your position in the uh, financial levels of your income, like how can it affect your life? And especially in case if you happen to be an immigrant, which situation when you cannot actually transport all your capital, um, social capital that you have back in your native country to the new country where you are trying to get by. So today our guest, he'll introduce himself. He has done research in Montreal, which was devoted to these issues, and we will be very interested to discuss the process of the acquiring this data and the results. So please.
Yes, hello Boris, thank you for inviting me. My name is Lucian IVANOV. I live in Montreal and I hold a master's degree from Concordia University in Montreal in sociology. Yes, this research was done with the occasion of a guest lecturing that I held at Concordia University on this topic. It's a study, it's a deductive study, right, as opposed to an inductive study. So deductive study, which consists in, having all the data, letting the data speak to you, transpire, and see what it's going to hold as a conclusion, right? So I use the literature review, right, the literature on social capital and poverty, and so looked at several names and authors on the domain, some articles, newspapers articles, and statistics from Statistics Canada website, and the Ville de Montréal, the city of Montreal's database of statistics.
So before we will start to have a look at your slides and particulars of the study, I would like to discuss general problems that you might face when you try to find out what's going on in this area. First and foremost, I believe it is that you assume that the immigrants don't have social networks. You do not ask them about their acquaintances. You just assume that if they're immigrants, they don't have this social capital. Am I right?
Yes, it's true. Yes, you assume that the
So
social capital
there is
is
a little
reduced.
bit.
Yeah,
There is a little bit of possibility of bias because some communities are very tight and
yeah,
supportive to each other, even more than local Canadian communities.
correct, correct. You are right.
And when they immigrate, Statistic Canada doesn't show much of the information of their networks. All you can know what is the country of origin or maybe the year when they arrived. So there is a bias,
No,
possible
that's a very good point. Yes, yes.
possible bias because we know Chinese communities, like Middle East communities. They're very supportive. They provide jobs to each other. They are
Yes,
more.
yes, and you will see in the data because I looked at three communities: Italians, Haitians, and Romanians. Right?
That,
We could have looked at the Greeks as well. Greeks are very strong here as well, but Greeks are compared to Italians. So Italians a
So
very strong
another
community, and you
thing
will see the data speaks for itself
in
as
terms
well.
of social capital, very often they acquire the social capital upon arrival within their community.
Yeah.
And this can be inherited from their social capital from overseas.
Yes, well, who would like to get involved with the community, because some people are
So
reluctant to get
the
involved.
one, that's one
Yeah.
factor that might affect the results. Another
Yeah.
factor, the data about their income as reported by themselves. Because
Yes, but it's reported. Stats Canada is connected to taxes and everything, so it's
and
we would say it's quite accurate.
not a real secret that some communities, some countries have different approach to their honesty in their taxes. For example, expecting from some communities the real reflection of their income is far-fetched. We can assume that a lot of cash transactions and under-the-table deals and probably the results are hugely biased by this factor, especially if we compare it to like average communities in Quebec, which also have some sort of problems with reporting their income compared probably to other parts of the population in Canada.
These are some limitations, yes, I agree, but
I wouldn't
mean,
even say that it's some. I would say that it can create huge bias. Because on one hand, I don't want to criticize you. It's
no, for sure.
It's a very important question. But I would like to say that probably two sources of data that we can use without involving actually immigrants themselves. But even if we involve them, they will not tell us the truth. Because on one hand, they don't want to disavow their connections, because it's not acceptable in the Western world that the decisions of hiring process are based on family ties and not on their virtues. And on other hand, they will not disclose the information about their true incomes, which actually make this the conclusions that we might make inherently biased and even not suitable for making any outcome. So how do you fight these two factors?
Okay, well, I hear your yes, I hear your constructive criticism, and I do agree. But I would say that obviously this study is made on the data available, right? On the your average citizen, your average Joe that holds a job and is going to declare his income. So it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that are in the databases that declared it. So yes, would you have restaurant owners and all types of owners that will have other will not declare it all, will have cash under the table and stuff? Yes, that's correct. But and that's to be kept in mind for sure. So, but I would say it's based on statistics on your average citizen that declares his taxes.
When you said the average citizen, we cannot apply it to the immigrant communities. They are not average citizens. They have very distinct things that would differ them from other communities.
Yes, well, I'm saying every citizen as per Stats Canada, right? Everyone that's a permanent resident is going to start declaring his income.
Another question about such study is, okay, isn't that obvious that having acquaintances and social capital will provide better opportunities? It's kind of obvious conclusion that doesn't require really proof, isn't it?
Well, yes and no, because you see, if we are to follow the government's rhetoric, is that, you know, we have many programs of integrating the immigrants, everything is dandy, you know, language lessons, support left and right, and still you will see in the statistics 65% of immigrants have hold a university degree. The levels of PhDs and masters is even higher, right? As opposed to half uh, the normal Montreal population. So, and yet they, you know, they make less money. They considerably less money, right? It's affecting their income. So it's a discrepancy. They're highly qualified, and they make almost, you know, 50% less than others, than the
Okay,
ones that, the native Canadians, right? So
very interesting remark. I agree with
it's
you.
not that obvious.
I agree with you, but there's another issue here which is involved, that we do not need that many qualified specialists. There are a certain number of positions that can be filled. And if we have too many PhDs in certain area, even if we agree that they all have highest possible qualifications and all equal, which is not the story, we don't have this capacity. We don't have enough universities and research centers to employ them.
No, that is true as well. But we're talking statistics, because, you know, at the level of population, you will have, let's say, an university here will produce only in one department, let's say in sociology, will produce 20 master students, and maybe 3 or 4 PhDs per year, right? So at the level of population, it's still not that significant. But then again, you have the question of matching the studies, recognizing the studies, right? Studies from abroad,
Yeah, and
they must be
most
recognized.
interestingly, I agree that we have a very bad situation. We actually, as Canadians, as Immigration Canada, trying to withdraw the best professionals from their native countries, and we cannot give them, we cannot use them according to their credentials. So we cause damage to their native countries by taking them away from them. Doctors, professors, specialists, scientists. And here, at the best, they do unqualified jobs, apart from personal tragedy, that their aspirations are betrayed and they are not able to achieve the self-realization as they would expect. We also do the impact that the third world countries are staying in worse shape in terms of their workforce, because the most qualified, the best professionals, most ambitious ones are more prone to immigrate to Canada, and Canada is more welcoming to those. Sure, it's some kind of, I would say, stupid situation when we just cause damage to the outer world, damage to the person that is immigrating to Canada, and probably damage to Canada itself, because we do not need such an influx of non-qualified, like simple workers. And also, they are not very good simple workers, because someone who is proud of their low position and believes that there is a reason why they are doing what they are doing, it's a different worker than some kind of professor which feels like he's in hell because
Yes,
instead of
he's underpaid and he's under recognized and everything. Yes,
not only
yes,
underpaid, but
under recognized and everything. Yeah, and
after
he
50 million,
doesn't have. He's losing his meaning, right? He's losing
after
his
40
he's losing his life
published
meaning.
works,
Yeah,
all he can enjoy is working to his uncle's business, doing some things that he would never imagine doing in his life.
yeah.
And here we reveal the real tragedy of our immigration system, which is not capable.
I agree. Well, to add to that, and I don't have the article, but it can be easily found. There was a TD study, yeah, Toronto Dominion, right, bank study of how much Canada is losing because it's not leveraging the speciality of these immigrants, right? It's not using them to their full capacity and doesn't recognize fully their degrees. In the tens of billions per year, it's losing
Yeah,
economically.
and
So,
we both probably the same age, and we both remember the Soviet times.
oh, for sure, yes,
And back then, no matter how much everybody criticized them, they did not produce more professionals than they actually needed. Every professional after the university was dispatched,
yeah,
sometimes to distant places, sometimes not very desirable places, but the guarantee for the work according to his profession was
yeah.
in place.
And it's going on in Canada. I have to tell you again, because I'm interested in the subject. I'm staying up to date. In Saskatchewan is the only province in Canada. Between a little secret, they are the only province that are really tying very well the economic needs with the academic degrees, right? So they have an employment rate of like 98%. All universities are in a co-op program, right? There is one here in John Molson School of Business, but that's only for the business side. So, but there everything is on co-op, right? On cooperative means, which means in the second, third year of university, you're gonna be matched with an employer. You do your mentorship there. You're gonna basically start working for that employer with very, very high chances of remaining there after you graduate. And I find that's amazing. So it's possible. There you go. A province is doing it. Why not all Canada? Well, that's just a
Also, I
higher
would like
question.
to mention that we are talking about social capital as a positive factor. But,
Yes, yes, but
but
but it's a negative when you lose it, right? I give you an example. If a realtor, right? When I came here from Romania. I had like 600 numbers in my cell phone. That if I would call someone there, I know I would get a coffee with, right? So if you'd start a realtor job right here in Canada, and you have 600 friends like that, and you tell the news to their families, right, cousins and everybody else, you all of a sudden you're gonna have 2,000 3,000 people's
yeah,
databases,
you're
right?
converting your social capital
Into
into
money, yeah,
clients,
into
into
income.
things,
Yeah,
obviously. But when you come to the new place, there is a strong resistance of the existing system and
yeah,
people with their existing social capital against the newcomers. For example, in Toronto, there are studies that show that up to 90% of the jobs are in hidden job market. They never get to be advertised freely for everybody else. So 90% of the places are filled
yeah.
through personal interactions rather than in true competition and virtuous
Yes, yes. Well, that just comes to enforce that social capital is so important. And
so here we have the negative force. So
yeah, negative force. People should, and if this will be seen by immigrants or people that want to immigrate, people should consider this deeply because you might have a couple of years of, uh, you know, a real economic situation where you cannot, you know, call anybody for help and things like
Another
that.
factor
But
that probably more pronounced in Toronto rather than in Montreal, but it's um, I don't have a proof, it's just a feeling. In Toronto, knowing someone doesn't mean that you'll get help from him.
of course, yeah, of course.
Like being a neighbor to the minister means nothing.
Yeah, there you go.
It means that you're just the neighbor to the minister, that's all.
Yeah.
And they will be polite and they even can drink with you beer and do whatever, but you won't get any real help. In Montreal, I would say people are more warm if they feel that they're friends. They feel that friendship goes beyond just maybe I'm mistaken.
I think you are mistaken. Maybe it's more between immigrants, but between Quebecers, for example, it's the same situation. I would
But
say
with,
it's a type of systemic racism that we are talking about.
yeah,
Let's
but
call it by
within
name,
the
which
but
is a very, it's a very fine thread there. It's unfelt, but it's felt, right?
But within the Quebecois themselves, they actually use the social capital a lot. They help
A
each other.
lot, of course. Like yeah, we have to break this barrier that here, you're coming, everything is dandy, you'll be on welfare just in case, and you'll make. Yes, you can make it for sure, but like nepotism exists here very much, which personally I didn't believe I would see it. Right? I mean, you come with some preconceptions, and maybe that's why I made this study. I wanted to to get rid of my preconceptions as well. So yeah, the social government is very
So,
important.
so we
Nepotism
are coming
exists.
to the
Yeah.
basic problem of the sociological studies, where it's very difficult to get the unbiased data for
Yeah.
analysis. And like sometimes it's so prohibitive that it is not possible to collect the clean data that can be actually used in serious statistical
But
analysis.
it still speaks. I can tell you, it still speaks. Italians are making more than Romanians. And Romanians are making more than Haitians, for example.
Maybe they're reporting more.
There you go.
Italians may be
Well,
reporting more
well,
than
maybe,
Haitians
but
that
then
not
Italians
reporting at
have
all.
a longer community, have a longer lifespan here, right? They came earlier. They
I
started to come
agree. Yes,
right?
it's a richer
Romanians came
community, and
later.
also
Haiti,
uh, the
yeah,
trades that they usually work in, which more to real estate and building, are more
lucrative.
lucrative.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but I have to tell. Look, I will tell you, and I don't want to draw conclusions. You draw your conclusions. We will speak on the data if you want at the end. So Italians have a longer history here. Haitians came in the 70s. Romanians started to come later, 89, 90s, right? Well, except the wave that came that went to Alberta in before the between the wars, I believe, but as a very small wave. So Romanian Haitians are in the middle, right? They came in the 70s. Romanians came after the 90s, and still Romanians gain more than the Haitians, right? So even this is dismantled. That the longer you stay, the more you increase your social capital, the more income you gain. No, so it's another issue, right? We don't want to say it. I
Absolutely.
let you draw a conclusion, right?
Yeah. What I would like to say here that like we are facing a number of problems that we already mentioned today. First is inability to understand what's the true income of different communities. Second, what is the true level of their interconnection and what's the factor how they provide to themselves the income and so on. And the third is that we definitely steal professionals from the rest of the world and diminish their value by not using them according to their profession.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what's the quality of their education. At that level, they might be better educated than the local Canadians, or equally, or inferiorly. We even don't give them the chance to show their relevance to our job market, because we never let them to try. So the argument that probably it might be the argument, you know what, our universities are better, they just get their degrees and whatever. It's not a standing argument, because we never have the wide proof that they're inferior to our level of education in terms of their efficiency when they work, because
Yeah.
most of them never have a chance to work. What I also would like to say that there are some changes to immigration and taxation system that can completely eliminate those factors. Let's start with taxation system. My proposal was to employ the what is called automatic tax on financial transactions, to use the tax base, not the profit, but the whole volume of financial transactions, and automatically withdraw the tax from each transaction. It's not my idea. The idea appeared in 1970s, but it was not feasible back then because there were no actually electronic transactions back then much.
Yeah.
Now it's absolutely feasible, and what it allows is completely free people from the
Declaration of tax.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You can take whatever the budget needs directly from financial transactions. You can appoint and calculate the percent that you need to take. And since the volume of the transactions in tens, if not hundreds times bigger than the regular tax base, which is the reported profit, then the percent might be very insignificant for each individual.
Yes, but I see already a couple of issues with it. And be careful what you wish for, because it might happen as well. But because there's the talk about digital dollar, right, by the Federal Reserve and whatnot, exactly making this point that many checks that were, I'm missing the term, these checks that were because of the COVID that were issued, many didn't hit the receiver because of address changes and whatnot. So they said, let's make the Fed dollar, which is a cryptocurrency, right? The Fed digital dollar. And we're gonna wire it directly into your bank account, or according to your social security, we'll wire it directly, you'll have access. That's one. Plus, they say it will provide liquidity, more liquidity for banks and whatnot, because it's electronic. Anyway, okay, and you are saying, okay, tax directly at the source of the transaction. Yes, but that would mean an overhaul of the whole system, right? And the first problem is mistaxation, right? Like errors. Then you might find yourself taxed over. The second problem I see, they have to assess. Yeah, they have to assess your salary, your overall salary, because right, you're gonna tax me for buying a car, you're gonna tax me for groceries. It's different type of taxes. Let's say I made 150,000 that year. Well, I'm taxed within this bracket. I made 50,000 that year. I'm taxed with it.
No,
so
the suggestion is
right?
Is to make a universal tax.
Yeah.
And the responsibility for reporting will be removed from individuals and companies to the financial institutions, where they don't have any reason to misreport because it's not their money anyways. So
yeah.
I mean,
could it be done? Probably, but as I said, it needs a huge analysis and an overhaul of everything, right?
But
digitization.
This can make an enormous positive impact. First of all, in such system, the budget cannot fail, you will collect no matter what the certain amount if you decided to collect it, because you will adjust the percentage that you collect as a government,
Yeah.
and you will get your money in the end, doesn't matter what.
It's very intrusive. I find it. I don't think people will go for it. Whatever. It's very intrusive. It's like the state is putting the money in your pocket. I don't think people will go for it. Right?
Very liberating, because then you actually are not responsible neither for reporting taxes. You cannot be accused in tax evasion or fraud. There is no such thing anymore.
But if you deal in cash, what do you do if you deal in cash?
Nothing, but already we know that only about 9% of the transactions are in cash. And also they are in cash.
95% are in cash, are digitized, I would say, not in cash.
North America, only 9%.
Oh, only 9%. Okay, I thought you said 90. Okay.
But even if it is so, such a change will encourage people to get their cash back into electronic transactions, because there won't be any reason to hide anything, because you cannot be persecuted for anything. Another thing here, intrusion of the government can be way less, because in this case, the government won't care what is the source of the money and how did you spend it and what are the
Oh, I believe they would care. Deja, they have the
No, I'm just theoretically saying
10,000 limitation that you have to justify. Right?
I'm just saying that such thing is more natural. It's like the organism that collects blood from all the organs automatically because of the difference in pressure, and gives the oxygen automatically to all the tissues, rather than expecting that one or another organ will report by itself and so on and so on. Another thing is the ability to collect taxes in an automatic manner allows to expect that people will, those that are rich and trying to hide their assets overseas, they will be able to return their assets to our local economy, because there won't be any point to hide anything.
It depends on the percentages, obviously. If the percentages are motivational, yes. Sure.
But the calculations show that the percentage is going to be around 1%, between 1 and 2%, at the level. Because the simple thing is, if you do 100 transactions with the same amount of money, government will take the whole amount of money. 100 times 1%.
Yeah.
But yeah, it will melt and go to the government entirely. But none of the one out of 100 people that were involved in this transaction will complain, because every time they do this, they will lose only 1% of the amount that they work with. So it's like a tax burden will be so evenly distributed among the population that it will not be any more sensed by the population. Also, there are many transactions that are not really connected to the population. The hugest transactions between the companies that actually evade taxes in a lawful manner by making daughter companies and invoicing each other. And we know that such giants like Apple and Google, they were forced to pay some extra taxes because of their attempts to avoid paying real taxes.
Yeah.
This case, again, any movement of money in and out of the country and inside the country will be a little bit taxed immediately. And what I mean by immediately is, let's say you and me today decided to make this commercial, what we do right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it gets huge success, and we sell advertising for $1 million.
Yeah.
Until we will really need to report this $1 million, we have 1.5 years at least. If we form the partnership or a company today, we will have about 1.5 years until the tax authorities will start worrying why we didn't submit the report. 1.5 years. We can spend the money, we can take it away, we can lose it, we can do whatever, any possible thing. Like keeping this $1 million for 1.5 years, the chances that taxes will get anything in the end of this period, even without us actively trying to commit fraud or evade taxes, are very low. We will naturally lose this money. We might. But in case of the system that I propose, in every time, like in the beginning, when we get this money, they will get their 1%. And every time we will be losing or transferring this money, they will be getting their cut as well. And in the end, they will get at least something, which will be a considerable amount, and prevent those situations that actually, theoretically, their tax base is a certain number, and finally, they have way less ability to actually receive those money back.
Yes, well, I
Stable,
hear
but
you. Again, I said it takes an overhauling of the whole system to do this, because the state will not like to lose, right? So they want to know if this will
it's
really
not
work.
losing.
And
It is good for everybody
yeah,
except those who work as accountants and
yeah,
for those who actually run the tax authorities.
yeah.
Uh, in my
Yeah,
book, I
I
found
need to see the whole
I
idea
found
to pronounce
how
myself. Yeah.
how to convince them. For example, Revenue Canada spends a certain amount annually to their operations. In such case, it will shrink to a tiny organization that mostly will be dealing with cases when someone wants the exceptions, like someone has very small margin and they cannot afford that their transactions will be taxed 1% because their income is 1%. So they will be able to apply to be exempted and pay their tax regularly based on their profit. We will leave those possibilities to those that cannot afford with small margins, right? And but the tax departments will shrink. So we can use the same money that was used to run them to pay them off, to let them find their new career. And when I calculate how many people work in this tax area and how much is their budget, it turns out that the first year we can give them $180,000 each. Second year, $120,000, and the third year, $75,000. Most of the tax workers that get wages like 60, 70,000 annually might take this deal.
Yeah. Again,
That's to
looks like you
accountants.
have the numbers. I would have to see more, but 1%, it sounds very fair if it's evenly distributed. Two objections would be the level of control of the state, which will be huge on every transaction. That means everything will be digitized and okay. The second one is it's a two-way street, right? So if they have already the right to, put their money in your pocket this way, if you're not an outstanding citizen, obviously they can block you, right? They can block your usage of every funds of every. They can outcast you, so to speak, right? In an instant, by a touch of a button. And I mean, yes, we all desire and to be outstanding citizens and whatnot, but sometimes there are false positives that happen, right? And those are unfortunate cases. I can give you examples. Like giving, for example, someone, based on this algorithms and Google searches and YouTube searches, right? So someone was searching for days ways to decapitate people and how to murder your wife and this and that and whatnot. So after a week or so, the FBI broke his door down and came to him, and he was actually a scriptwriter, right? A screenwriter. So he was documenting himself to write a horror movie, right? So that's a false positive, right? So you don't want to be on the receiving end of this type of false positives. That's what
the mechanism of introducing such reform, and also the positive thing here, the tax evasion accusations cannot be then used in political ways, because any political figure is prone to such accusations. And once the burden of paying the taxes is transformed to the financial institutions, it's really freedom, a new level of freedom of the individuals and active politician figures, because usually when someone tries to hurt their counterpart, they are trying the tax accusations in evasion of taxes.
Oh yeah, well they say as well, the IRS in the United States. I mean, they can always find that, on anyone that they breached the tax code.
Another thing,
if they want to dig deep enough, that's the
another
same,
thing.
right?
It turns out then the budget is protected from the efficiency of the economy, because okay, if the economy falls in half, they will just raise the percent and will get the budget anyway. They will take this 2% instead of 1. It can be updated every month on the base how much they already automatically collected. Every financial institution can be asked to create the government account like Receiver General, that they will automatically transfer all the funds according to the announced percent. So the guarantee to provide the certain budget allows to think of the basic income to the population. Because like one of the functions of the taxation system is equal redistribution of the wealth taken from.
I mean, it's a nice dream, obviously. Do I agree the rich are paying
we
are
lived
not
in
taxed
this
accordingly?
nice,
I do agree.
we lived in this nice dream almost a year. Most of people who had a need, they received $2,000 per month, and many
Yes,
businesses
in
received
Canada, yes.
different things. So making such a thing will completely eliminate the poverty in the country. It won't be possible anymore because any resident will be able to get the equal income. This money will go back to the economy rather than being accumulated somewhere.
I will comment on this, and I will tell you there was a talk in at BBC UK, televised, with economists and ministers a couple of years ago, about the universal income, yes, and how to somehow make it happen. And there was a very nice proposal which I would fully embrace, but you see, it's been years. That's why I'm skeptic about it. They said this: why don't Google, Facebook, even YouTube? Why don't we tax these people accordingly, right? Because they're hiding from taxes. I know Facebook has offices on a private island, right, for taxation purposes. So why don't they? Because already the users, they are making money of these users that actually are their secret laborers, right? You're staying 3-4 hours, you dedicate on Facebook, you are the product, right? If it's free, it's because you are the product, right? So so they're taken away from their normal labor time or other activities, and they work for free, right? So why don't they pay the user? So why don't we taxate these huge corporations accordingly, and out of those tax monies, we create a universal income.
Because they are powerful guys with a lot of monies, and they
Yeah.
make sure that it won't happen. And
Well, of course, these type of corporations.
my
uh,
proposal is not to hurt anyone's interests. When
Okay.
such system is introduced, no one's interests really will be touched. And how such change can happen, I have an approach of lobbying in a non-political way. Such a thing, such reform is not partisan. It's not conservative and it's not liberal. It's neutral. So I already tried to approach four members of parliament with such ideas, and I received great feedback, a lot of laughter, though. Yeah, but the
Until you
interesting
mentioned the percentage. Again, that's why I'm saying.
just a second. What I'm saying is that technically you don't have to acquire political power in order to introduce some kind of lawmaking activity. It's enough to convince the majority of the parliament members who are exposed to different ideas through their constituency offices. They all have hours when they receive the general public, and having enough agents that will make these presentations to most of the parliamentarians allows to introduce this idea as a whole to the parliament without being able to go and give them a speech. And it can ignite this idea of course, more prepared you are, better it is. If you come to them with well-developed document based on the development by the lawyers and economists and statisticians, it's better than you just come with one piece of paper where you just drafted the idea. But in general, I believe that it is feasible, it is possible, at least at some degree, to influence with such ideas existing politicians, even though they might be opposing each other, because on their personal level, it's better for them to live in such conditions where they will never be chased for allegedly not paying tax or having their accounts overseas or offshore or anything else. It won't be criminal anymore at all. It won't like Trump didn't want to release their tax papers. It won't be needed to release tax papers. Another thing is the crime money, for example. We will not be that naive that if we will allow them to use our electronic system and tax any kind of money, it will encourage the crime. They exchange without much trouble with the cash, with the bitcoins or whatever, and we don't see a dime from those transactions. If we stop looking whose money going for what, and in such system, it's natural because you don't have to chase anyone for their taxes. So why would you care? All you care is that the money is moving through the financial system. We can actually get our cut, even from any kind of transactions. And in some countries, in all countries, in Canada as well, unlawful income should be taxed as well, by the way. Al Capone was in prison for not paying taxes, but I believe he didn't have much of legal income. All his income was illegal, but no matter. It doesn't matter what's the source of your profits if you receive those profits and they were not taken from you.
As long as it's going to be, I would see it, as long as it's going to pass through the system, it will be taxed, right? So and the system will be digitized.
And it make it way more healthy and way more ability for the people to have more stable future, because like right now, such a catastrophe like COVID make a huge damage to our economic system and to our budget, of course. The budget will not be filled with tax money, obviously, for this year and maybe for some years.
Yes, they
And what I
probably most
propose,
likely printed like the US, like the Fed
even if the
printed, and
recession
we're in
will be
deficit.
very, if the
Yeah.
recession is deep, we need the budget money. Like now, we needed this budget, coming from the government. But the
Sure.
worst thing is when the recession is deep, the government doesn't have enough money to help us. And in this case, even low transaction levels still will guarantee the planned budget, right?
I mean, yes, as long as there is a tax, as they do right now. But I mean, it's a complete overhaul. Again, it's a complete overhaul, right? You're not talking about.
But we are witnesses to complete overhaul in many other areas.
Yeah. Well, again, it's
Government is very
homework needs to be
conservative
done,
because there's
like you
no.
said. Homework needs to be done. It's eventually, I mean, even if you have some homework done, the government will have to run its own assessment, obviously, and see, because they know best, right, the budget and everything else. So yeah, it's
Another thing is that immigration system has to admit that in current circumstances, they cannot predict which immigrants will be more beneficial to the country and which will be less.
no, I think the prediction should be done on specialization and on matching the economic needs, the labor market, with
but
the specialization of immigrants.
a lot of bias, a lot of fraud on side of the immigrants as well, trying to present themselves those that they are not really are. A lot of bias in terms of positions are not filled because there are no professionals, but it doesn't mean if we bring the professionals from overseas, those positions will be filled with them. Sometimes,
Well, degrees, I beg to differ. Degrees are, are verifiable. They verify up to the point that they call the universities abroad and whatnot. And, the degree itself, the diploma, physically, it can be verified and whatnot.
My idea of immigration reform is that virtually what Canada wants to avoid is that we have people coming and becoming a burden of our social system. That's the only thing.
No,
that really worries them.
But I have to tell you this, Boris. Even at the level of the provinces and the whole Canada, except Saskatchewan, there is a huge disconnect between the labor market and the degrees we are producing right now. I can forward you a YouTube video. It's actually not only on YouTube, it's on Amazon or Netflix. Okay, it's a 30 minute documentary on Canada specifically. It's called Jobless, I think. It's called Jobless. Search for it, Amazon or Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So they did research and everything else. And actually from there, I know about Saskatchewan. There's a huge disconnect. Nobody at the level of Stats Canada doesn't know how many engineers we need for Quebec, how many degrees are we making for Quebec. We might need 300 and we're making 4,000
But
degrees.
the truth is that
right?
degree is not a profession. Degree can be very far away from the needs.
Yes, I agree. And then there's another trap that the youngsters, the young population are falling into. So you don't have this. I mean, you have this huge disconnect. Engineering degrees, engineering profession is not what it was as well. It's overflooded. Teaching in Quebec is overflooded, and everything else. Young people have no idea in what they're getting into. They think they'll get a job and then they end up being a bartender, right? So it's so unfair, and it's so unfair that nobody, nobody does this type of statistics. Nobody, nobody, there's no tools to become aware unless you're gonna, dedicate weeks and months into really finding out these discrepancies, right, and do research. So and the excuse was that no, the provinces don't want to impede on, on the other provinces, right? That's why we don't have a national study on this, because the provinces don't get along between each other. They can come to a consensus. I mean, this is such a poor excuse. I'm sorry, it's such a poor excuse, and this young generation is left to pick up the pieces. And what's at stake is the future of Canada that's at stake, right? Because we are not prepared to tackle, this fourth economic revolution that it's coming, that we say, this digitization, we're not prepared. So that doesn't look good.
Absolutely. We are nearing the end of our dispute, our conversation.
We went on a big tangent, but
yeah, I think it was very fruitful, very interesting. We raised very interesting questions. I would be happy to continue next time, similar and different topics. I would like to thank you for your participation and for your input. And
thank you.
I think it was marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Have a good day, guys.